is an alumnus of National Institute of Technology, Karnataka, and Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. We welcome you here, Nithin. Thank you so much for waiting patiently throughout this time. I will not waste too much time with my talk. I'll give it the stage to you.
Thanks, Anamika. How much time do we have? Let me try to stick to that.
We have, say, 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, sure. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is quite one-sided. I think, I'm able to see the chats here. Okay. Let me just share my screen. Yeah. Okay. So, hello, everybody. I'm Nithin. I take care of product and technology for Nestaway. I don't know how many people have heard about us. We are India's largest managed housing platform. We are into the business of providing people with rental homes, and we've been doing it for the last 5 years. And we are across now about 6 Indian cities. You know, sooner or later, when you come into a city, you will probably touch base with us, and hopefully we can help you find a home. Right? That's what we do. Previous to this, I come from a non-enterprise world. I've co-founded 2 companies. One was bootstrapped, another one was venture funded. My previous company, which was Goodbox, was into providing mini apps or providing an online presence to small and medium businesses. So a lot of the things that I will tell today, or a lot of the instances that I will draw upon, will be from a consumer or a small business context. Okay, it will not be from a typical enterprise or an enterprise cloud context. So you have to excuse me for maybe going a little away from the traditional cloud context, right? So you might actually hear me giving instances from the consumer front, from an aggregator front, etc. Happy to change tracks. If you guys think that is not something that's of interest to you, please put it out in the comments, right? I don't have too many slides. I have about 6. So I will try to go through them very quickly. So this is the topic that I'll be speaking on, which is cloud computing as a facilitator for SME entrepreneurship. So the first question obviously is, what is this SME and how big is it and why is it important? There is no real solid data around it, but some data says that there are 5 crore SMEs in India. To put in some context, we are a country of 140 crores. So almost 3-4% of the people, probably, even if you put 1% per 1 SME, it will cover 4-5% of the Indian population, right? It generates 40% of the employment in India. This is a pretty verifiable figure. It contributes to 35% of Indian GDP. We are a 1.4 trillion GDP country. However, given the size and the scale of what it is, the technology adoption in the segment is very, very low. And I've seen it firsthand in my experience in Goodbox, and that's the thesis that we started with. There is also a clear problem of demand and credit, which is really ballooned during COVID, right? So SMEs were dealing with the problem of low demand for the last 2-3 years, and due to the NBFC crisis of 2018-19, credit was also an issue. Now that's kind of gone down to very, very large proportion due to COVID. Government is trying to focus quite a lot on SMEs and trying to make them globally competitive. It's a lot of contradictions here if you look at it, right? There's low technology adoption, very huge, employs a lot of people, but we want it to be globally competitive. So that's really where the mythical SME Unicorn currently is. It's the next big focus area, both for private and public investments. You can see if you even look at the government COVID package that has come out, it's really, really focused on the SME sector. And you can see a lot of VC funds, a lot of PE funds also looking at businesses that are enabling the SME sector, right? So really that's That's where the boundary of this problem statement lies. Now, instead of going into the technology and other parts of it, let me just take a step back, and let me give you a consumer perspective of what I've found. I found to be what SMEs really care about. Right? SMEs really care about these four things. Right? They care about getting new customers. They care about retaining their existing customers. They care about reducing costs, and they care about controlling fraud. Right? Now, if you look at the heart of it, of course, some SMEs in manufacturing might care about some data security. Some SMEs in, let's say a grocery store will care about some other things. There are needs that are larger than this. But as a product person, if I have to crystallize and say, hey, what are the top four that's common across these 5 million SMEs? I think that will be these four. I'm not claiming this is the truth, but this is what I think will be the top four. I'm sure a lot of you will agree. If you disagree, please put it in the comments so I can probably address them. They want new customers, they want to retain existing customers, they want to reduce costs, and they want to control fraud. Right? So I'm just going through each of them and kind of putting some context of where cloud and technology and internet kind of falls into this. So getting new customers. In my experience, I've found a lot of young SME entrepreneurs have kind of found a lot of success by attaching themselves to large cloud-based aggregators, right? So if you look at the last one decade, right, 2009-10 was really the start of large cloud aggregators in India. The Flipkarts, the Redbus, the Ola, the Uber, and all of these cloud-based large aggregators started coming into India. And when they came into India, they really needed supply, right? They were good in getting consumers. They would do marketing, get customers over the internet, do SEO, SEM. But really on the supplier side, the first set of suppliers that they really got was really young SME entrepreneurs who started from scratch. An example of this, if I have to get back, was in my first company, I co-founded the company with one of the early founders of founding team of Redbus. So I had met one of the bus operator called Seabird. So when I met him, he said in 2016-17 timeframe, he had about 500 buses. Right? Lokesh is saying, what is SME? Small and medium enterprise. I thought that was quite obvious, but sure. Small and medium enterprises. Anything that has probably less than 1 crore in revenue per year. The exact definitions vary. Less than 1 crore of revenue per month is probably what will be an SME. So when we went there and we asked him, he was quite thankful as an entrepreneur for Redbus, right? Because in the world of large bus operators like your VRL and your SRS and all those guys, he was a small operator who was the first to get on the Redbus platform, right? And really his business and everything grew around that, right? So he used large cloud-based aggregators to really kind of form a mutually beneficial relationship. He helped them get supply, aggregators gave them demand, so they grew together, right? And you can see that positive experience, especially in industries like bus aggregators, taxi aggregators, etc. But what really happened was that there are two kinds of experiences there. So one was a mutually beneficial experience. There is also an experience of them being not mutually beneficial, which is especially true if you look at grocery aggregation, if you look at e-commerce aggregations, etc., where some of these SMEs started getting disintermediated, right? Which is, if you look at early grocery aggregators like Grofers, like say Big Basket, and a bunch of these guys started as an aggregator platform where they would not, hold inventory themselves, but they would work with local grocery stores, etc., to kind of get them on board and then kind of get consumer demand and give them. That's really the first wave of internet entrepreneurship, right? But there the experience has been very poor, right? If you look at what's happened now, most of the grocery stores have disaggregated from them. They see them as a threat, right? And even the early, young entrepreneurs, SME entrepreneurs who would have started with these aggregators are kind of moving away from it, right? So it's really a dichotomy in this get new user segment kind of need. Some segments have seen a lot of good things and mutually beneficial relationships. Some have not. So if you really have to point a finger and say what has worked, what has not worked, we really aren't sure. All right, it's a very it's a segment that's still kind of finding its own dynamics. So there is a rising need for the second need that I'm talking about, which is retaining the existing customers, right? So with SMEs, if you go and ask today, after 10 years of cloud-based aggregators in India, most of the SMEs will probably answer, yeah, I think there is a possibility that I will be disintermediated. Like if you ask a local mobile store, he will probably talk about, yeah, I will work with Flipkart and Amazon to sell mobile phones, but I think that there might be a threat on the long term, so I want to build something of my own, right? So that's really where it stands today in my experience. So the second one is retaining existing customers. This is where, if you look at the last experience, the SMEs are more here now. They see a threat of disintermediation, but the key questions that they have are probably these four. They probably have more also, but these four is what I think are quite important. They have questions of how do I get an online presence? How do I build a website? How do I go about, telling my customers that I have a website? How do I take online payments? I want to run my own loyalty program. I want to make sure that a local grocery store make sure that I don't want to lose my existing customers to Big Basket. I don't want to lose my existing customers to Amazon Pantry, right? So how do I run my own loyalty program? They also have a question of how do I get or measure customer satisfaction? And how do I know that my customer is probably not satisfied with me because I don't have enough catalog or I don't have enough good enough delivery logistics, etc., etc. So they're really carefully evaluating and questioning, telling, how do I make sure that I don't lose my existing customers to an online aggregator? The problem, however, here is that for each of these questions, if you look at it, right, there are answers. There are tools out there. There are great Shopify plugins out there that enables people to do any of these things for online payments. There's so many options today. However, actually, what it really comes down to is to meaningfully for SMEs to retain their customers online, they really need to standardize their experience, right? So let's say as end customers, right? We are end customers. What do we really value in a Flipkart or an Amazon or a Swiggy, right? Is that if you go to any of those stores there, if you go to Swiggy and order from any of those restaurants, I can be assured that the food will actually come in 35 minutes, right? I can be assured that the quality of food will be great. I can be assured that the packaging will be great, right? However, what really happens with SMEs when they try to kind of get onto the cloud platform, they get onto the internet, build their online presence, as an aggregated setup of a lot of different SMEs, they really lack that standardization, right? That's really where they're stuck. And that's where, if you look at my previous experience in Goodbox, that's what we really tried to do. And that's where if you see Paytm's announcement yesterday, which is what they're doing with mini apps, and PhonePe is doing mini apps, and what WeChat did with China is really creating a shop commerce platform on the cloud where a lot of these businesses can come on board. But the platform kind of becomes the handle on ensuring that there is standard customer experience, while the shops really own that individual online presence, right? That's really where we are with retaining existing customers. The third one is reducing costs. Like, okay, now we've retained customers. The third thing that they really care about is how do I reduce costs? How do I make sure that it doesn't balloon? I'm profitable. Unlike venture funded companies, they're really, really focused on profitability and how much money that they can take out of the business. And I feel that this is where most of the success stories, as far as internet adoption, cloud adoption of SMEs have really come in. There are a lot of examples, right? Inventory management of groceries. A typical grocery store has about 30,000 products. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? Probably a decent sized supermarket in India will stock more SKUs than Walmart in the US, right? That's the data, because the kind of products that we have. So many different kinds of products. However, the inventory management of that is a huge challenge. And if you see traditional inventory management of grocery stores, they used to have this, small machines, and they would have a hard disk there, and then they would go back, things like that. But today, if you see, there are a lot of companies like Go Frugal, like Genesis, who built all these cloud platforms to manage inventory that really holds those SKUs on the cloud, right? Let's say Nandini tomorrow launches another kind of milk. They really don't have to, go and, one person will not come with a hard disk, put it there, kind of sync it. No, it's actually put on the cloud. Let's say Grow Frugal has 20,000 grocery stores across India. All of them get proper catalog information. They get, this is a new Nandini milk. This is the picture of that. This is the, the price of it. This is the calorie information. All of them uploaded in one shot, right? And I'm not talking about this being theory. This is not theory. This is actually, today, if you go to a grocery store, like in Bangalore, if you go to an Aishwarya or any of these grocery stores, you will see these cloud platforms, and they're extremely, extremely efficient and well used. Another example is Khata Book, right? I'm sure all of you have seen Dhoni's ads. If Dhoni is giving an ad for a platform, it should be pretty big. More than 2 crore SMEs use it, right? What's the need? It's reducing cost. They give a lot of credit. They don't know how to manage it. That's cost of business. They want a nice way to manage it. It's a mobile app on the cloud. Simple way for you to say, hey, I've given credit of XYZ for this person. And just the credit management software has probably more than 2 crore users, right? That's quite a lot of adoption for a country where we say that SMEs don't have SME technology adoption, right? They're doing great. They're helping them manage credit. Another one is e-signing. We've seen it in Nestaway. We have a lot of vendors. We have a lot of homeowners, large real estate homeowners working with us. We are completely digital. All our agreements are digital agreements, right? And we are one of the first companies in the sector to do that. We were awarded. Our legal team was awarded the most technology-centric legal team this year. Now, if you look at it, e-signing is a huge leap for an SME, right? They're used to having a stamp paper. They're used to having something on something that they can hold on to. Them moving to a completely cloud-based, they don't know where it is. If you ask a typical SME and say, okay, you e-signed a document, do you know where it is? Right? They'll have no idea where it is. But the adoption is there, right? Because they're seeing that it actually reduces cost. They're seeing that value come in, so they're actually taking it and going forward. The other things are, two things are, I'm sure all of you have seen. There is accounting systems now which are on the cloud. You'll see very Tally's growth. The install on your window package Tally. That's slowly seeing reduction in sales. You can see an increase in all kinds of cloud-hosted systems for accounting. Employee tracking is another thing that is linked to their costs. If you go to most SMEs today, even restaurants for that matter, you can see people using thumbnail impression based employee tracking, linking it to payroll. So all those things are happening and at scale. These are not people 500,000 installations. No, these are actually 20 million installations. Kind of a setup that's happening. Significant venture investments are also getting into SaaS. As I said, Go Frugal has raised money. Genesis has raised money. Redbus, for example, has made significant investments in bus operator software, right, to help them manage inventory, reduce costs. You wouldn't find a bus operator. There are about 8,000 bus operators in India. When I mean bus operators, I mean your long distance city to city intercity travel. There are about 8,000 bus operators in India. I don't think you can even find one today who doesn't employ a cloud-based ERP solution. Not even one, right? That says something. When really invested properly in a manner that they derive value, you can see the adoption grow quite a bit, right? So venture funding, venture investments are seeing returns there, so there is significant amount of money going in there as well. But the natural limitation here is what I feel is that while you can keep reducing SMEs costs, there's only a limit after which SMEs really don't care about cost as much. They're still about how do I grow my business, how do I retain my existing customers, right? Because in India, what happens is the cost of labor is quite cheap, right? Even SMEs, you'll hear them complaining about low labor issues, but still when compared to Western markets or enterprise markets, the cost of labor that they deal with is quite cheap, right? So technology is really replacing labor there, right? And since the labor cost is already cheap, the cost benefit that you can actually get out is also quite cheap, right? So it's very small. So you can keep working on it, but there's a natural limitation. However, if you can work on cloud technologies to increase their customer base or retain their customer base, there is no limit on how far you can go, right? So I think that's where it is. There's a lot of success here, but there are natural limitations, right? So it just feels like I'm going on a monologue, guys. If you have any questions, please put it in the comments. I'll be very happy to pick it up, or at least it will give me a sense of whether I'm boring you guys or when I should stop. Yeah. The last one that I have is about control frauds. I think this is one of the most under-leveraged, least talked about need of an SME. SMEs really deal with a lot of fraud, right? These frauds are about, they have problems with hiring. Somebody has done a fraud in the previous, let's say I'm a grocery store, I need a cashier. Somebody's done a fraud in the previous grocery store, he comes to my store. I have no way to know whether this person is good, bad, etc., right? Cash handling. If you look at most SMEs, the person who sits in the cash is the person who's a close relative of the owner, because they just don't trust it, because there is easy possibilities of fraud there. There are so many revenue leakage opportunities that are there in normal SME businesses. Like if you go to a restaurant, right? It's so easy to do fraud there. It happens every time. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. You go to a restaurant and if you ask them for, let's say, I want an idli, right? It's so easy for the cashier to do fraud, where he'll not give you the slip. He'll take you the money and he'll just talk to the guy who's giving the food and say, can you give him food? Right? Now the 50 rupees that I was supposed to give him is split between the cashier and the person who's giving the food. Then you don't have to worry about giving the money to the owner, right? So there are these really small but very, very significant revenue, expense, collections, and collections in Nestaway, right? We've seen a lot of problems with collections, right? So these are all frauds that at some level SMEs deal with every day, for which they really need tech. They really need great products to be built and on the cloud, not hosted, right? And there are so many opportunities in cloud computing technology here, and there's a large market ready to pay. I'll give you an example of what I think. Of my own experience, right? When we were building my first company, when in early years we were building some hardware and we were selling it to bus operators who were one of our customers. And one of the bus operators, generally, when he was talking to me, he told me that, look, I have a bus of 50 seats, right? Which goes from Bangalore to, let's say, Goa, right? During weekdays, my bus is about 20% of my bus gets filled with tickets from Red Bus, and I sell tickets, etc., etc. And each ticket is about 500 rupees, right? I know for a fact that my bus doesn't run at 20% occupancy during weekdays. It actually runs at 50% occupancy, right? Now, at 50% occupancy, what really happens is that the rest of the 30% is actually going to my driver is picking up somebody on the in between and going. So he said, is there any technology out there that tells me clearly that this is the number of people going in my bus every day? Like some AI technology that can, put a camera and tell me these are the unique number of people and give me a count, telling 8 people have traveled in your bus today from Bangalore to Goa. I said, if you can give me this for every route that goes, I lose about 3,000 to 4,000 rupees. I'm willing to give you 2,000 rupees for every route. So that turns out to be, if you look at it from a per ticket size basis, it's about 1 lakh a month, and he had 500 buses. So he actually committed for a ticket size of 5 crores, right? For what? For telling, can you give me a count of the number of people traveling in the bus, right? Now you're all technology guys. I'm sure you understand this is a solvable problem, right? On the cloud with AI, with face recognition and a bunch of those things, it's solvable, right? But I think there's no focus that's gone into it. How do you solve the issue of fraud at scale in India for SMEs, right? So there's a large market ready to pay. That's it. I think what next? Some of the things that I think is there's need to build very user-centric innovations on top of cloud platforms. There are a lot of cloud platforms out today, AWS, Azure, and a bunch of other guys. A lot of components that can be played with. I think a lot of people needs to build on top of that for user-centric innovations. Not just sell. You can't go and sell an SME. Hey, the best way to secure data is to put it on AWS XYZ. They don't understand that. So you really there need to be a layer in between that sells them use cases, and genuinely work for SME growth, not replacing them. Okay, there's some questions coming in. Let me just close these 2 points, and then maybe I can answer a few of them. Work on SaaS and products and not services model, because at a services model for SMEs it doesn't make sense, because it's too small a ticket size. There's no viable business model there. It really needs to be built as a SaaS and a product play. And then finally, I think there's a lot of government focus here. There's a huge smartphone product penetration in India, unlike anything that we've seen in our lifetimes, and we'll probably see. It's a huge opportunity there. And UPI payment stack is really transforming payments and collections there, right? So these are all tailwinds that are helping this segment. So I would like to end by saying that the future is quite exciting. Okay, so Anamika, I'm going to stop here. I think I've already overshot by about 7 minutes.
Thank you very much. There are questions for you now.
Yeah, let me just see if I'm the right person to answer this. Let me just
of course
try to understand that, and then I'll answer that. Could you please suggest some resource or links to learn about AI in cloud? The way I would say it is, just pick up one aspect of AI that you really love, or you kind of have a use case in your mind, like for example, face recognition, or let's say adaptive texting, or natural language processing, etc. Take one area. Don't go looking at everything. Take one area. Create a free account in AWS or Azure or GCP or any of these guys. They have so many free credits out there. Pick it up. Go build an application with them. Right? Be it a web app, be it an application, build it yourself. Like for example, there's Amazon recognition. The amount of APIs, the amount of things that we can do with that APIs is tremendously powerful, right? But I would say build it out. Like if you sit for about 2 hours on that, you will kind of get some structure, and then you can start building on it and see how it's useful and how we can learn about it. I wouldn't suggest reading more about it. I would suggest practicing about it. That's about the question from Sana Mateen. Arvind Krishna says, any advice or message for future entrepreneurs? Well, I think I mean, there's a lot of advice that I have, but a top one would be, well, I think start more than anything else. I think I've seen a lot of wannabe entrepreneurs trying to do something. I think put an attempt. Even if you're doing a job, do something over the weekends. Start something, even if it's small. You learn a lot. Raman Singh, sir, how can we secure...
Very profound advice, actually. But you should first start.
Yeah, I think, yeah. How best can we secure data for transportation to the cloud? Well, I think there is VPN, there is HTTPS. There's nothing better than HTTPS, tried and tested. I'm sure there are many others now, but HTTPS works for us. I'm sure it works for a lot of people. Risks are associated with cloud computing model, but how is fraud associated? I'm not sure I get the question, Balaji. If you can just put some color to it, I'll be able to answer it better. Lokesh, what skills are most critical to success the target audience? Communication. I think that's number one. I think whatever you have, you need to communicate well. That's the highest. As Warren Buffett says, if there's one thing you need to invest on yourself, is your own communication skills. Yeah, so that's I think. And Balaji, I didn't get your question, so if you can maybe ask it.
There is another question Lokesh had asked earlier. It says, what would be a response for recommending SME resources to a junior developer who wants to start a new business?
Well, if you're a junior developer, I think there is enough stuff to build. Okay, so it depends on what you want to build, right? So if you want to build, let's say, anything on the web or app, my recommendation is pick up Firebase as a backend. I'm sure you guys know what it is. Firebase is the hosted backend from Google. It's very cheap. It's very fast. It helps you with the entire backend stack for probably less than 1,000 rupees a month, right? Good way to start. Another good resource, SME resource, would probably be, and Shopify is obviously good. They have a lot of stuff. I think if you are worried about data security, a very good resource is Screen, SQREEN. It helps secure your data on the cloud very well, but it also has a lot of cloud functions, and you can really do it well. But that's not an SME thing. It's a little bit of a scale thing. But SME, I would say Firebase is a very underappreciated resource. You should check it out.
Shashank wants you to share your experience.
I've been sharing right now. I'm happy to do it in a one-to-one. If you can connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to share any questions you might have there. What is eucalyptus? I have no idea, Raman. I have no idea what the eucalyptus means. Is there any other parties involved in SMEs? Yeah, there are a lot. I mean, the SMEs all talk to each other. There is a whole ecosystem out there that works. That's where collections and all those things also come in there. I'll give you an example. A very good company which is doing something very, very good for SMEs and agriculture put together is a company called Bijak, right? Bijak, you check it out. Bijak is a company that was funded by Sequoia. They are into agri-tech. But what they really do is, in agriculture, the problem is the farmer is selling something to the wholesaler, but their relationship is really not rated, right? I, as a farmer, could sell something to somebody, and after that, the guy could just not pay me money. And then, he could continue to do that with 20 other farmers, right? They put a nice rating and review layer on top of the transaction between a wholesaler who's an SME and an agriculturist who's really an agriculturist, right? a micro entrepreneur, if you may. But that's a really nice use case that they built on top of it. So I think if you have to build an SME entrepreneurship question, I think look for such, and that's really linked to fraud. If you look at it, it's really linked to the fourth question that I have, right? Which is fraud and cost at some level. Does Nestaway implement anything toward digital forensics? Yes, we do, and screen is an important part of it. You should check it out. SQUREEN, I think that's what it is. Yeah, SQREEN, screen. It's an application management software. It will do a lot of things for external as well as internal data security. Anamika, the questions coming in, but I'm not sure of the time, so I'm going to stop there.
We can take one last question before we wind up.
Okay. Rishabh is asking, sir, what is the role of an MBA and engineers in role of developing and computing advanced technologies? I think engineers form a heart of it anyways. I think there is no question about it. And if any of you are thinking that engineers will not have a job for the next 50 years, don't worry. I think there's more than enough opportunities for engineers to automate stuff for the next 50 years. There's no problem. MBAs, I think MBAs from an engineering point of view, they really become product managers or the product folks in between. They're really the link between the market and the engineers, and that's really where their expertise comes in. So that's really where they fall. MBAs are really the link between what should engineers build, and engineers are about how they build it. And both the roles are good enough for the next 50 years. I don't think there's a problem. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Abhishek, again, screen. Just go to screen. It looks like I'm selling screen, but I'm not. I don't get any money from them, but it's a very good.
I had a feeling the same feeling.
Yeah, but I'm not doing it. But it's a good one. It's a good software.
Good, right. I don't think we have more questions. Thank you very much for your time, and apologies for the beginning we kept you waiting. It was lovely to hear you. Let's connect with you again sometime.
Thank you.
Looking forward.
Thank you.